Welcome to episode 538 of AI Brief. I'm Amin, and joining me today is Leah.
Hello, everyone. I'm really looking forward to getting into this material.
So today's deep dive is all about making sense of a massive structural shift happening in the AI landscape right now. We have a stack of breaking tech updates, and they all point to one major theme. The era of relying on a single monolithic AI model, well, that era might actually be over.
Which is a huge pivot from where the industry was even just a few months ago.
Well, it really is. And the catalyst for this deep dive is what happened overnight. Thousands of developers woke up to find out that Anthropic has just pulled its top-tier models, Mythos and Fable.
Following a direct U.S. order which suddenly restricted access for a massive chunk of the global market.
And for anyone who relies on those specific models for, advanced complex problem solving, it felt like the floor just fell out from under them. But, and this is the fascinating part, this sudden restriction isn't a dead end.
No, it is actually acting as a massive forcing function. It is accelerating this shift toward AI neurodiversity.
AI neurodiversity, I love that term.
I mean, when access to a centralized proprietary model is severed, the ecosystem doesn't just stop. People figure out how to combine multiple smaller models to achieve those same frontier-level results.
So let's get into today's new updates, because moving from that problem, Fable being restricted to the immediate solution hitting the market, it's just wild. OpenRouter just launched a new API called Fusion.
This is the perfect example of that neurodiversity in action.
Well, I want to break down the mechanics of it, because from what I understand, instead of asking one AI a question and just hoping for the best, Fusion sends your prompt to several models simultaneously.
It does. It basically acts as an automated peer review system. Because to understand why this is such a breakthrough, we have to look at what a trillion parameter model like Fable actually is. It is a massive, incredibly dense digital brain that takes a staggering amount of computing power to run.
Which makes it expensive and obviously easier to restrict.
Precisely. But OpenRouter's Fusion API circumvents the need for that giant brain. For you listening, an API is just a digital switchboard, and Fusion uses that switchboard to send your query to 3 or 4 smaller, highly specialized models instead.
Wait, if Fusion is sending my one prompt to 3 different models, and then using a separate model to evaluate and merge those answers, isn't that just going to cost me triple? I mean, how does this actually make economic sense?
That is the intuitive assumption. But here is where the economics of the open source market really changed the game. Those smaller models, in this specific case, they used DeepSeek V4 Pro, Kimi K2.6, and Gemini 3 Flash.
Okay, a real mix of models.
Yes, and they cost absolute pennies to run compared to querying a trillion parameter giant. So OpenRouter routes your prompt to all 3. They each generate an answer. Then a judging model evaluates those outputs for logic and accuracy. It discards any hallucinations and merges the best parts into one final reply.
So it's like assembling a board of expert advisors. You have 3 specialists debate a problem, a moderator synthesizes the consensus, and you get a polished final report. And the benchmarks are actually surprising.
They really are.
When they tested that specific trio, this digital panel hit 64.7% on a perplexity benchmark, just shy of Fable 5's 65.3%.
And that perplexity benchmark, it measures complex, multi-step, deep research capabilities. Hitting 64.7% means this cobbled-together panel is operating within a fraction of a percent of the restricted frontier model.
And doing it for about half the cost? That feels like a structural breaking point for the entire industry.
It democratizes that top-tier reasoning. Alex Atala, the CEO of OpenRouter, actually said, "The future of AI is neurodiversity, not single-model takeovers."
Which makes perfect sense when you look at the geopolitical pressure going on. The roadblocks are getting severe. Look at Meta's current headaches. Beijing just ordered Meta to reverse its $2 billion acquisition of the Chinese AI agent startup, Manus.
The fallout from that is immediate. Data sharing has been completely cut off.
Oh, wow. So what happens to the founders?
The Manus founders are now scrambling to raise $1 billion just to buy themselves back. It really shows how fragile cross-border AI development is right now. Regulators can just drop the hammer and the infrastructure collapses.
And that external pressure is definitely causing internal chaos.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly dealing with a revolt inside Meta's applied AI unit. He even released a memo admitting to, quote, mistakes in their AI restructuring.
It highlights the immense difficulty of steering a massive tech giant through all this. Regulators are hitting the brakes, internal teams are warring over resources, and the competitive stakes are existential.
Which is such a crazy contrast to SpaceX's historic IPO. While Meta is struggling, SpaceX just had the largest market debut in history. Shares surged 19%, hitting a $2.1 trillion valuation.
It minted over 4,000 employee millionaires, even cafeteria workers and welders. And it made Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire.
But, I mean, we have to look at the math here. They reported $4.69 billion in Q1 revenue. A $2.1 trillion valuation based on that revenue seems mathematically absurd.
Financial analysts are definitely debating that, but you have to look at what the market is pricing in. SpaceX is tied to xAI. Investors are placing a premium on the physical infrastructure and the satellite networks that could serve as the backbone for future AI deployment.
Even with that infrastructure, there is a lot of friction. There was a Times Square protest over the company's safety record and xAI's safety record during the debut.
And impartially speaking, that friction is a core feature of the market right now. Staggering wealth creation colliding with intense public and regulatory scrutiny.
So moving into everything else in AI today, we need to look at how these trillion-dollar markets are causing real-world ripple effects.
I completely agree, and I want to take this at a slightly slower pace because the way this is altering human capital is profound. There is a staggering statistic out of China. Over the last 5 years, universities there have scrapped more than 12,000 programs.
Wait, 12,000 academic programs?
Yes, they're actively swapping arts and language degrees for tech fields. It is a whole nation restructuring its human capital in real time.
That feels like a massive admission that the graduate job market is fundamentally altering.
It is. When an AI can handle real-time translation flawlessly, the economic value of a standard language degree drops. The state is preemptively restructuring its workforce to build the infrastructure rather than competing against it.
Because the tools driving these job shifts are getting radically more efficient. I mean, Moonshot AI just released Kimi K2.7 code. It's an open-source coding model that is cutting reasoning token use by an impressive 30%.
And for anyone who isn't familiar, a token is basically a fragment of a word that the AI processes. The more tokens a model uses to reason through a problem, the more computing power it burns.
So cutting that by 30% is a massive cost saving.
Huge. Through algorithmic pruning, the model identifies the most logical path faster. That 30% reduction is what makes it economically viable to replace entry-level coding tasks with an automated agent.
And it isn't just coding. Google's Gemini Omni Flash just claimed the #1 spot for text-to-video and image-to-video. It leapfrogged Seedens 2.0, Happy Horse, and even Google's own Veo 3.1.
The generation quality is great, but users are really praising its remarkably easy video editing capabilities. You don't need a complex software suite anymore.
But to ground all this high-tech theory, we really need a reality check. McDonald's is currently piloting ArchIQ, a Google-powered AI drive-through system at 5 locations.
Which is such an interesting pilot because 2 years ago, McDonald's had to shelve its last AI test.
I remember the viral videos, people getting hundreds of dollars of chicken nuggets added to their orders. Why is taking a burger order harder than writing code?
Because a drive-through is chaotic. Background noise, heavy accents, people changing their minds mid-sentence. If ArchIQ can handle that acoustic puzzle without a viral mishap, it proves AI can finally filter out real-world noise.
That is a great transition into today's trending AI tools, because we want to empower you, the listener, to filter out the noise and actually use these tools. Let's run through a hypothetical. Say you want to build a boutique coffee brand from scratch by this weekend, but you have zero coding or video editing experience.
That is a great practical angle. It really shows how you can become a solo tech powerhouse.
Exactly. So the engine of your operation is Fusion by OpenRouter. That gives you frontier-level reasoning affordably to plot out your business strategy.
Because you can chain these tools together.
Right. Well, moving to the coders, you need infrastructure. ZAI has GLM 5.2. It has a massive 1 million context window.
Which means you can upload your entire back-end inventory system, and the AI can hold all of those variables in its memory at once.
And for highly efficient day-to-day website updates, you bring in Moonshot's Kimi K2.7-code. Now, for the everyday assistant to manage your schedule, you use Apple's newly overhauled on-device Siri AI.
Since it's on-device, your private business data is secure.
Now for the builders and creators. You use Lovable to build a customized loyalty app from idea to software using just a chat interface.
No coding required.
None. Then, you use AnyVids as an all-in-one place to generate and refine your promotional videos. You run those through MuseCuts to turn standard product pages into viral AI video ads.
Which takes care of all the marketing.
And finally, you use Motion Sites to build your landing pages in minutes using prompts. and Amberface generates high-quality professional portraits for your About the Founder page.
The synthesis here goes back to our opening theme of neurodiversity. You don't need to be a massive corporation to utilize an AI council. A solo entrepreneur can chain Fusion, Lovable, MuseCut, and Motion Sites together.
You just orchestrate it all. So recapping our journey today, we went from Anthropic's restrictions giving rise to OpenRouter's fusion to the massive economic shifts with SpaceX's IPO and China's educational overhaul.
It really shows how fast the ecosystem adapts.
It does. And the takeaway for you listening is don't feel overwhelmed when access to a favorite tool changes. The ecosystem immediately offers cheaper combined alternatives that are just as powerful.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought. If the future of AI is pooling specialized models to evaluate each other's work, what happens when these AI councils recognize their own blind spots? What happens when they rewrite their own evaluation criteria, completely independent of human oversight?
A digital board of directors rewriting the rules while we just sit and wait for the output. That is definitely something to ponder. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, and we'll see you in the next episode.